Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from Sourdough for Beginners if you don't already know me. Today I'm going to do a mixer showdown. We're going to talk about the most popular mixers that are out there on the market and how to compare them and how to choose which one's right for you. I've got tons of information, tons of research for you. Please do subscribe. It's right underneath the video. Click that button. It helps me so much. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to watch the whole video, just go down into the description of this video. I've written down all of the links that you would need for every single mixer that we looked at, and I've also listed the winners in the various categories that we're going to cover today. So let's get into it. I've got 3 mixers on hand today. I've got my neighbor's KitchenAid Artisan Series. I've got my Bosch Universal Stand Mixer Plus, and I've got my Revo Titan Tilt 7.5 liter. We are going to look at the cost of the mixers and how you should be comparing them with each other, because they're not all apples to apples, not even close. We're going to look at the strength of the machines, the versatility of the machines, and the usability of the machines. And then at the end, we're going to award 3 winners. One is the best overall mixer. One is the best everyday on a budget, just using it for a regular kitchen mixer. And one is the best mixer for cottage bakers or people who are baking high volumes every week. So let's dig in and we'll learn together. So the first thing that we need to address with stand mixers is, how do you compare them to each other? Are they comparable with each other? Are they in the same class? So we've got about 7 different mixers that we should look at today. So we've got the KitchenAid Pro series. We've got the KitchenAid Artisan Series, which I've got here. We've got the Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer, which I have here. We have the Nutrimill Artiste mixer. We have our Revo Titan Tilt machine. Then we also have the Ankarsrum, which is a very high-end mixer. And then lastly, we've got sort of the no-name mixer that exists on Amazon. And the reality is that there's so many of those, we couldn't possibly compare them all. But I think after today, after we talk about the different things that we looked at with the mixers and the different research that we did and how we came up with it, you'll be able to look at the options that those mixers have and decide whether or not they're going to work for you or not. So first and foremost, how are we going to compare? We've got cost, we've got strength, we've got versatility, and we've got usability. So the cost of the mixer just comes down to, is it reasonable when you compare it to the mixer that most closely matches it? The strength comes down to, how much power does the motor have? What is the bowl size, and what's the maximum amount of flour that the machine can possibly handle. Now, I'm not going on total weight of dough, I'm going on flour. So a lot of these machines, when you start digging into them, some will tell you how much flour they recommend you use, and some will tell you how much dough they recommend you use. So it's not apples to apples, right? So I'm just going to go with an estimate of flour, assuming that flour works out to around half the weight of your total mix. Obviously that's going to vary depending on what you're making. Next is versatility. So what can you use the mixer for? Is the mixer going to work for sourdough, which is, something I make every single day, but is it also going to work for cookies and cakes and mashed potatoes and everything else that you might want to use it for? So how versatile is it? And what kind of attachments are available for the machine, and how universal are there? So which machine has the most attachments available? Which machine is going to be something that you aren't going to grow out of quickly, or if you do grow out of it, your things are going to carry forward or not. And then last is usability. So how much does it weigh? Can you move the thing around the kitchen on your own, or do you need special equipment or whatever it is? And will it do what you're trying to get it to do? So we'll just cover each of those things and dig into those things today. So I'm going to start with how you should be comparing these machines first, so that you have an understanding of what you're really choosing from. The most common question that we see in our sourdough group on Facebook, we're at 1.6 million followers now, and people always come on and say, should I get the KitchenAid or the Bosch, right? Or should I get the Bosch or this machine that I found on Amazon that's only $200? Why is the Bosch almost $500 when the Amazon one is only $199? And then the other question we get is the Ankarsrum worth it? It's so much more expensive. Is it that much better to justify it? And then we also see people who have evolved so much in their baking that they're becoming what we call a cottage baker. So a cottage baker is somebody who's baking bread still at home in their home kitchen, but they're selling the bread. And they're making somewhere between 10 and 125 loaves every week and selling it at farmers markets or off of their porch or whatever it is. And so they're starting to really need some versatility in the volume of dough that they can do, and also some reassurance that their machine is strong enough and that it's going to hold up to the wear and tear and be able to mix that dough for them. So what we've got is actually different sections of mixers. And so I've sort of separated them into 3 categories. The first category is your average home mixer, your average home baker who makes a batch of cookies every other week, who maybe makes 1 or 2 loaves of bread at home for the family every single week, who's using this mixer somewhere between 1 and 7 or 8 times per month. And that mixer is probably your sort of entry level, reasonably priced mixer. So the mixers that would suit that category are the KitchenAid Artiste, the KitchenAid Artisan Series, the Nutrimill Artiste, and most of the no-name mixers that are available on Amazon. So these are smaller mixers, less capacity, less motor strength, sort of the lowest amount of ability, but they come with benefits. They've got lots of attachments, they're a little bit lighter weight, they're easier to work with, and of course they've got the best price. So when I'm comparing mixers, I'm going to be comparing the KitchenAid Artisan Series with the Nutrimill Artiste, and we'll go through those comparisons in just a moment. Then we've got the Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer and the KitchenAid Pro. So if you are baking 3 to 4 loaves every day, if you're using your mixer for long periods of time through the day, if you're having big baking days where the mixer's just running all day long, where you want to be able to mix multiple batches, 4, 5, 6 loaves of bread all at a time, then you're going to need a little bit more power, a little bit more bowl size, a little bit more durability, right? A bigger warranty probably, all of these things, right? So in that category, I think that the KitchenAid Professional and the Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer are the 2 to compare with each other. So we often see people coming into the group and saying, oh, well, I'm looking at the KitchenAid Artisan and it's cheaper than the Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer, and we're always trying to explain that they're not comparable with each other. They're not in the same category. So we've got KitchenAid Pro with Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer. Then we have our Ankarsrum. Our Ankarsrum, and I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. It is a built in Sweden, high-end machine. It is beautiful to look at. It works in an entirely different way than the KitchenAid and the Bosch. Its system is different. Everything about it is different. It's also significantly more expensive. I think that it is in the same comparability class as the KitchenAid Pro and the Bosch Universal Plus mixer. So I'll go through and tell you about the pricing and the capabilities of each of these machines. And with the Ankarsrum, it just really comes down to whether or not you want to make that investment. It does come with a very significant warranty, so that's definitely something to consider. Then we've got our cottage bakers. So what should our cottage bakers do? our Revo Titan Tilt machine is a dough specific machine. So it's specifically designed for breads, mostly pizza dough, bagel dough, sourdough. You could absolutely mix cookies in this. It's not designed as much for things like cake batters and everything else. Would it do it? Yeah, I think so, but it doesn't have a whisk attachment. Very heavy duty. This thing's gonna really be able to do it for you. So the only thing that would compare to this machine is perhaps the Ankarsrum. The Ankarsrum is cheaper or less expensive than the Revo machine, but I don't think it comes anywhere close to being as strong. So it's not really a fair comparison there. And then there are many sort of commercial size machines available on Amazon, but the issue that we've seen is that they have very mixed reviews, a lot of talk about them showing up damaged, issues with getting them through customs become a real problem. So the reason that we've chosen to go with the Revo for the cottage bakers is because I've actually met the man who is helping with getting these distributed in the States. I've spoken to them. They've got a messenger group where people who own the machine are sharing about recipes and how they're using it and everything else. And you can actually talk to the man who invented and built this machine. So that's definitely something to consider. This is the only machine that has a temperature gauge. So this machine is monitoring the temperature of your dough as you're mixing. So it adds a little bit of consistency that the others can't. So it's certainly getting into the entry level, commercial level, and harder to compare with, but something that should be considered if you're really looking for power. So I'm going to start digging into the bits and pieces of these machines. Okay, let's talk about the capability of these machines. I like to categorize it as strength. But I think once we go through these capabilities, it starts to help you understand how the machines are comparing to each other. So I've just jotted down the machines and covered how many watts the motor has. So what's the power of the motor, what the bowl size is, and what the approximate maximum flour is. The KitchenAid Pro and the KitchenAid Artisan Series both come with a 250 watt motor. That's the lowest out of all of the other machines. Now, is that strong enough? I'm sure it is. If you're doing a lot of use on these machines, you might want to consider a stronger motor. The Bosch and Artiste mixers both come with a 500 watt motor, so twice as strong as the KitchenAid, so certainly something to consider there. The Revo has a 750 watt motor, so 50% more than the Bosch, 3 times what the KitchenAid Pro has. It is obviously a much stronger machine. The Ankarsrum is kind of in its own little category. It's got 600 watts, so slightly more than the Bosch, slightly stronger than the Bosch, lots stronger than the KitchenAid. Now, in regards to our bowl size, the KitchenAid Pro comes with a 7-quart bowl, so slightly smaller than the silver bowl that you're seeing here on the Revo. Whereas the KitchenAid Artisan Series, so this one that you're looking at here, only comes with a 5-quart bowl. So when you look at these 3 bowls, you can see that the bowl is quite a bit smaller. The Bosch comes with a 6.5-quart bowl, so quite large, not quite as large as the Revo, but getting close. The Artiste, interestingly, also comes with a 6.5-quart bowl. So in regards to how much capacity we have, how much space we have in the mixer, the Artiste is going to be sort of much bigger than the KitchenAid Artisan Series that it compares with. The Revo comes with a 7.9-quart bowl, almost 8 quarts, 7.5 liters is what it says on this machine. So very big, very big. You could really fit a lot of dough into this machine. And the Ankarsrum is coming in with a 7.3-quart bowl. So out of all of the sort of kitchen everyday mixers, the Ankarsrum is coming in with the largest bowl, absolutely. Next, we've got maximum flour. So our KitchenAid Artisan Series is looking like the maximum amount of flour it can handle is about 3.5 pounds. When you get up to the KitchenAid Pro, you're looking at about 4 pounds of dough. Nothing to bat your eyes at, by the way. These are quite solid machines. I mean, when you end up mixing 3.5 pounds of flour with the ingredients to make sourdough, that means you're ending up with about 4 to 5 loaves, depending on what size you make your loaves. So nothing to bat our eye at, but certainly not the strongest. The Bosch, it can handle 5 pounds of flour, which is a lot. That's a lot. We're talking about 10 pounds of dough once we're done mixing. The Artiste is rated at about 4 pounds. I'm not sure why there's that much of a difference there, but I believe even though the Artiste has the same motor strength and the same bowl size, we're probably seeing more heavy duty gears and such inside the Bosch. The Bosch is really designed to be a powerhouse. The Revo is at 6.6 pounds of flour, which is obviously the highest. So we're talking about a huge amount of dough being able to be made in the Revo. And then the Ankarsrum is coming in at 5 pounds, same as the Bosch. So I mean, there's definitely some things to be said there, right? When I look at it from the perspective of how strong is the machine, how much can it handle, how big is the bowl, how much room do I have, I start to eliminate the KitchenAid Artisan Series just overall, and my eye starts to gravitate towards the Artiste. So let's talk about pricing, because that's going to also be sort of where we're going to look at things, how we're going to decide what it is that we're going to do. So the KitchenAid Pro retails for about $599 US. The KitchenAid Artisan Series is at $459 US. So about $140 difference to go from the Artisan to the Pro. On the other hand, the Bosch Universal Plus mixer is $499 US, so $100 cheaper than the KitchenAid Pro. And we know it's got a stronger motor, a similar size bowl, and a heavier capacity. So that's certainly interesting. Now the Artiste is $299 US. So it's $160 cheaper than the Artisan Series. It's $200 cheaper than the Bosch and $300 cheaper than the KitchenAid Pro. So if you were looking for a powerhouse mixer and you were really on a budget and you're only using it for regular household use, that Artiste mixer starts to look really interesting once we start digging into prices. Now the Ankarsrum, which I think most closely compares with the Bosch Universal Plus, is at $749. So it is $250 more than the Bosch. It's $150 more than the KitchenAid Pro. But it comes with a 7-year warranty. It has a bigger bowl at 7.3 quarts. It's got about the same capacity for flour as the Bosch Universal Plus. So I would say it's an investment piece. I don't know over time which one's going to be stronger between the Bosch and the Ankarsrum, but if you like the look of the Ankarsrum and you think it's neat and you've got the budget, then it's certainly something you can consider. If I had to choose between the two, I'd probably end up with the Bosch Universal Plus. Now the Revo is $1,099 US. That includes shipping, and it comes very well shipped. They've taken care of all of the brokerage. It's easy. There's no, sort of surprise import fees, nothing. It shows up. So there's a little bit more built into the price of the Revo than there might be with the other machines. So that's something to keep in mind. But it also has very heavy duty parts. So in a little bit here, I'm going to show you the dough hooks on these 3 machines so that you can see the difference in the hooks when it comes to usability. And you're going to see, you can just already look at sort of the differences in the way that these machines are built. So if you're cottage baking, if you're baking significant amounts, then this is definitely going to be the one that we would recommend. But of course, it is quite a big investment. So that's definitely something to consider. So next I'm going to talk about the weight of these machines. Weight is a huge deal to some people, right? Some people have bad back, some people have limited capabilities, some people have, like me, a very tiny kitchen. I don't know if you can see from the angle, but this is all of my kitchen, and every cupboard in this kitchen is full, every inch of everything is covered. So the size and weight of the machine makes a big difference for me. So when you look, you can see the difference, right? The Revo is huge. The Revo comes in at a whopping 64 pounds. So it's big. My husband's always like, don't lift it by yourself. And then of course he's never here when I need to use it. So I end up doing this crazy thing trying to move it around, or I wait for my daughter to help me. So there's that. You can see the difference in size. Now the KitchenAid Professional is slightly larger than the Artisan, so it stands a little bit taller. The difference between the Professional and the Artisan is that the Artisan has a tilt head and the Pro has like a lifting bowl. The head is stationary. When you've got the Bosch Universal Plus, it's a top loader machine, as is the Ankarsrum. You can see the difference in size. So the Pro is a little bit bigger than the Artisan and the KitchenAid. The Bosch is a little bit larger than the Artiste. So the Artiste is a little bit more compact than the Bosch. So out of all of them, the most compact is the Bosch. And then listen to these weights. It's amazing. The KitchenAid Pro and the Ankarsrum are both just over 28 pounds. So that is not light. These are big machines. When you're going to pick up these machines, it's definitely something to take into consideration if you've got a bad back or if you have to move this thing around quite a bit. The Bosch comes in at 12.75 pounds. The Bosch weighs less than half of the smaller KitchenAid. So that is something that makes things really a big consideration for someone who's got limited space or issues with lifting heavy things. The Artiste is slightly heavier than the Bosch at 13 pounds. I don't know why, it's a mystery to me, but still same thing. Very compact, very lightweight. So if that's something that is important to you, then you might want to make sure that you're looking at what the weight of your machine is. So I'm going to start talking about attachments and versatility. So I'm just going to stop my video for a few moments here, grab some of the things that I have to show you, adjust the mixers a little bit so that you can see, and then we'll start digging into the versatility of these machines and how that might affect what your final decision is going to be. So let's talk about how strong the tools that come with these machines are. I'm focused on sourdough, right? My company's called Sourdough for Beginners. It's what I focus on, but I bake everything. I make cookies, I make everything. So the pieces that are going to come with the mixer are very important to me. And I think that being able to see these three mixers side by side and the tools that they have is very eye-opening. So if we start with the KitchenAid, the KitchenAid comes with an overhead style spiral dough hook. Okay, so this Revo machine, it's called a spiral mixer, and what that means is that it's got this sort of spiral shaped arm that turns around your dough. So with the KitchenAid, you can see that it comes with this overhead spiral dough hook. It is quite small. It's quite lightweight. It feels sturdy enough, but it almost feels like plastic. Your Bosch, on the other hand, comes with this overhead style dough hook. It's sort of very angular on this side, rounded off on the other side. It's designed to spin within the bowl from on top like this. They include with it a dough hook extender, which will bring the dough hook all the way down to the bottom of the bowl if you're doing a small batch. Right off the bat, when you look at the KitchenAid dough hook next to the Bosch dough hook, it's a very big difference, a very big difference. And I'll get some close-ups of these so that you can see the difference. But the Bosch is looking a heck of a lot stronger. Now, I've seen on the KitchenAid Pro, the dough hook is slightly bigger, but not much. And the dough hook on the Artiste is a little bit thinner, a little bit more basic than the Bosch, but very strong and sturdy like this style as well. So those are our dough hooks. Now we should look at our whisks. So everybody's used to seeing the standard KitchenAid whisk, which, you know, it just attaches to the machine and it spins both like this and around the bowl. It's a really great design. All of your motors contained up here in the top of the machine, and it works really well with mixing. This is about the size of your dough whisk. Now, the Bosch has slightly smaller whisks, not much smaller, but slightly smaller. But the way the Bosch works is you get this piece and the two whisks pop on like this. So you end up with twice as much whisk than the KitchenAid. So it, you know, which of these two designs is best, I'm not sure. Now, the one thing that I do know for sure is that the KitchenAid Artisan design, it just doesn't do sourdough well. What happens is the dough starts to climb the hook, and as it climbs the hook, the machine, because it's so top heavy, because the motor is up here on the top, starts to walk. It starts to go dunk, 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 and there's many posts in the group of people who walked away from their KitchenAid while it was mixing and came in and it was on the floor. You know, with this one, with the beautiful glass bowl, which I love, you definitely wouldn't want that to happen. The KitchenAids don't seem to come with suction cups on the bottom, whereas the Bosch, if you look, does have suction cups that sort of locks it onto the counter. So even though the Bosch is much more lightweight, it seems to be sturdier in holding the dough. Now we come to the Revo. So the Revo does not come with any attachments at all. There are no attachments that you can buy for it. All you get is the spiral. But when you look at this thing, especially when you put it next to the spirals for the other machines, right? Now this one, I mean, I would say the Bosch is about half as thick, but when you put the KitchenAid next to it, it's laughable, right? This spiral is powerful, and I'll get in here and show you the mechanism that's turning the spiral. These gears that are inside here, they are no joke. So this machine is obviously significantly sturdier when it comes to the parts, but less versatile when it comes to the attachments that go with it. Now, interesting thing about the Revo that none of the other machines have is this piece right here is actually a temperature gauge. So it's sitting inside your dough while the machine's mixing, and on the side here, it's telling us what our temperature is. So what people are doing is they're actually using cold water or even ice when they're mixing their dough initially, and then they're letting the dough mix within this machine until it gets to a certain temperature, usually about 24 degrees Celsius. And then that helps them understand where their dough is going to be at in the proofing phase, in the bulk proofing phase. Excuse me. And if you can mix your dough to that same temperature every time, then it makes a much more consistent dough. So there isn't a lot of things that you can do to control consistency other than just being very careful with the other mixers that are out on the market. But with this machine, you can start to have some real control over consistency. So another reason why you might want this if you're trying to make somewhere around 100 loaves a week or whatever it may be. Now, in regards to what can these machines do, the Ankarsrum, the Bosch, the Artiste, and both KitchenAids all come with a lot of options for attachments to the mixer. So if you like to add, if you like the idea of having an ice cream maker or a pasta maker or a juicer or whatever it is, these are options that exist for all of the other machines. The Revo has none, so we'll just stop worrying about that for now. Now, an interesting thing is that the attachments that fit the KitchenAid Artisan Series are smaller than the attachments that fit the KitchenAid Pro. So if you purchase the machine, the Artisan machine, these initial attachments that come with it aren't going to fit the Pro. Now, a lot of the attachments that you can purchase aftermarket, so for example, this is a pasta press that's going to make, you know, a bunch of different kinds of pastas, and we have these pasta rollers, so the kinds that are going to make, you know, the lasagna and your fettuccine and your spaghetti. We've got various different types of bowls, so we've got an ice cream maker. All of these attachments, because they mostly fit into the front of the machine here, are going to be universal. So if you purchase after the fact attachments for the KitchenAid Artisan and then you upgrade to the KitchenAid Pro, your attachments that you've purchased are going to work. So that's great. It's just the attachments that attach onto the bottom gear on the KitchenAid that are individual to the KitchenAid Pro and Artisan series. Now, same thing with the Bosch and the Artiste. The bowl is about the same size on these. So the aftermarket attachments that you might get. So here's an ice cream maker. We've got a juicer. We've got a spiralizer. So this is going to spiral your broccoli your carrots and your zucchinis and everything else. We've got a vacuum seal blender, which is fantastic for keeping your nutrients in your machine. We've got a food processor attachment. Down here beside me for the KitchenAid, I've got piles and piles of attachments. I'll do some filming and show you the different ideas that there are for various attachments. All of these attachments, if you start off with the Artiste as an entry-level mixer and buy all of these to go with the Artiste, and then you upgrade to the Bosch, they are interchangeable. So you're kind of in a position where if it's your first time ever buying a mixer, right? And even at the bottom of the price range, $299 is not cheap. That's a big expense, right? You're kind of committing to a brand. Now, let's talk briefly about that. Nutrimill Artiste and Bosch Universal Plus, all sold by Nutrimill, interchangeable with each other. So if you start with the Artiste, you're kind of committing to eventually moving up to the Bosch if you ever move up. If you start with the KitchenAid Artisan, you may be committing to going to the Pro. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're going to try to start really small. Another thing to keep in mind is that this machine, the KitchenAid Artisan, out of all of the machines, is the only one that I feel can't do a very good job with sourdough. Is it impossible? No. Lots of people are making sourdough in their KitchenAid Artisan series, but it doesn't do a great job compared to all of the other machines. If you're going to be using it frequently for sourdough, I really think that you need the KitchenAid Pro, and then you start getting into price issues. So the Ankarsrum, same thing, has all of these different attachments that are available. The KitchenAid probably has the most availability for attachments. Not only do they make lots of attachments, but because it's such a popular machine, there's lots of aftermarket stuff out there kind of happening. For example, this is my girlfriend's collection of pieces for her food processor, and as you can see, it is quite extensive. So there's that to keep in mind too, if you were wanting to have all of these different attachments. So there we go. We've covered cost, we've covered strength, we've covered versatility, we've covered usability. We've talked about all of the things that might affect you in making your decision. So what are our recommendations? Well, here we go. I'm going to tell you who the winners are. If you are a cottage baker, if you're getting up there and you are baking 12, 14, 16, 100 loaves every single week, then by far I have nothing but glowing reviews for the Revo. It is beautiful looking. It is so strong. It's shocking when you put it next to the other machines how much more heavy duty this thing is, and yet it's still compact enough to fit in a regular home kitchen. It's fantastic. So if you're a cottage baker, or if you're aspiring to be a cottage baker and that's where you know you're going to end up someday, then I would recommend making the investment and getting the Revo machine. I would recommend it over the Ankarsrum because I think it's more powerful. When it comes to the best overall machine for the low volume kitchen user, so the person who's only using it once a week or once a month, or, you know, putting it up on the counter with their grandkids, then by far my top pick is the Nutrimill Artiste. It wins in price, it wins in power, it's comparable in everything else. It's comparable in versatility, and it is so lightweight, it is so compact and easy to manage. It's really very well designed for a kitchen with very low volume use. What's my overall best favorite mixer? I have been using the Bosch Universal Plus for quite some time. For the longest time, it was the only mixer that I had. Now, I did have a KitchenAid Pro many years ago. I loved it when I had it. I do have this Revo now. I think they're all fantastic, but the best overall mixer, in my opinion, is the Bosch. And I think it's because, well, I know that it's because it wins in all ways. Of the comparables, so it compares with the Ankarsrum and the KitchenAid Pro, it is the cheapest by far, $499 versus $599 or $749, right? It's got more than enough power at 500 watts. It's got more power than the KitchenAid Pro, and it's only slightly behind the Ankarsrum at 600 watts. I don't know if I can justify the extra $250 for the Ankarsrum for that extra wattage. When it comes to the Ankarsrum, I can justify it because it's got the bigger warranty and everything else, but overall, when it comes to cost, comparability, versatility, usability, my pick and my overall #1 winner is the Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer. It only weighs 12.5 pounds. It's very compact, so it's going to suit everyone. If money were no object and you were starting and saying, I just want to get a mixer that's going to last me 20 years, then absolutely buy the Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer. If you truly had an unlimited budget and were saying, you know what, I want something really strong for being able to make large batches and to really do great on my sourdough, but I also want something that I can just pull out when I want to do a quick batch of cookies, then I would pair the Revo Titan Tilt with either the Bosch Universal Plus stand mixer or the Revo Titan Tilt with the Nutrimill Artiste. If you were to get the Artiste, you'd be looking at around $1,400 altogether for the two mixers, but then you'd be able to use them for what they shine at. If you were really on a budget, then obviously the Artiste is by far and away over and above. So those are my recommendations. Make sure you go down into the video description. There's so much information there. I've included links to all of the mixers. I've included who the winners are. Also important to note, the Bosch and the Artiste automatically apply $20 off at checkout. The KitchenAid and both of the KitchenAid machines frequently go on sale, so we'll look for a sale when you're going to purchase. And the Revo just is what it is, but worth every penny, I promise you. So that's important to know about pricing. Tell me in the comments which machine you've got. Ask me any questions, tell me what your thoughts are, tell me which one you would pick, and tell me what you would like me to compare when it comes to sourdough and kitchen things next. So we'll talk to you all soon. I'll get you some close-ups of all of these things, and thank you so much for watching. Please, please be sure to subscribe.